Hello, I'm Sultana Ali, coming to you from the LG Digital Studio at the Georgetown University School of Continuing Studies. In focus today, reputation management in a digital world. I'm joined by Anthony Shop, co-founder and chief strategy officer for Social Driver and chairman of the National Digital Roundtable. Welcome, Anthony. How are you?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. So let's talk a little bit about social media. When we say social media, we're not just talking about Twitter and Facebook anymore, right?
Right. Social media has really pervaded all of marketing and communications. It's the way that we interact with one another. So, of course, Facebook and Twitter are often mentioned, but Instagram is now the fastest growing channel that so many folks use, of course, owned by Facebook. And we saw a recent announcement today that the Messenger apps, that Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, and Instagram Messenger are all going to merge into one platform. So the landscape is continuing to evolve, and we need to include Messenger and those other apps that are private ecosystems, not just public ecosystems like Twitter.
So thinking about all of these changes that are happening as this world evolves, what challenges does living in this digital age pose for an organization that's trying to manage its digital reputation?
Yeah, well, first thing I always want to say is that there are a lot of challenges. We see them in the news every day, but there are also a lot of amazing opportunities to reach people and connect with one another that we never had before, things that used to be unimaginable. So there's that positive, but we also have to recognize the challenges that organizations face. It's not just what they say about themselves that matters anymore, or what a newspaper writes about them, but what their customers and other stakeholders say about them as well. And so it means we can't just talk, but we have to listen. We have to ask, what are other people saying about us? How are they saying it? How can we measure that so we know what to do with that information? And that really changes the game for marketers, because organizations are used to telling their own story. They're not always used to asking, how do I become part of other people's stories? And that's really what we have to do today. We have to ask, how do I get in that selfie with my customer? Because that's how I'm going to reach their friends, their family, and other people. I can't just interrupt them anymore. So totally different for marketers.
Yeah, completely different. So there's challenges, which you kind of referred to, but there's also great opportunities. Yeah. Is there an example that stood out to you in your work at Social Driver?
Well, there's so many. I mean, Social Driver is a digital agency that helps companies connect with people today. And we work with large companies, we work on campaigns, we work with causes. And one of my favorites is the GED Grad Day, which was a new initiative that we helped the GED launch. Their traditional advertising, bus ads, radio ads, was not a compelling way to connect with their audience. It didn't seem authentic. And we said, why don't we find real stories and elevate those stories? So from that idea, GED Grad Day was born, and it resulted in thousands of people sharing their own positive experiences about how the GED helped them fulfill their dreams, go to college, get a great career. And it was really inspiring, because people who, maybe felt ashamed of the journey, they said, gosh, I used to not want to talk about this, but now I realize it was really important and I should, tell everybody what I did and be proud of it. And that's exactly what we wanted, but it also was great marketing because it reached other people to learn about how this could be an opportunity. Mm-hmm. So that's what I would call bottom-up marketing.
Oh, that's great. And authenticity is really important as part of all of this. And with this new generation that's coming, millennials and the generation behind them, they're expecting more of brands and organizations in terms of how they communicate with them and what they stand for. So socially conscious marketing is something that is on the minds of a lot of marketers and PR professionals today. Is that a trend that you see continuing?
I think it's really continuing, and I think young people, millennials, Gen Z are driving this, but I think we are all embodying that, even older generations, and saying it's not just the product, but I want to know, who am I supporting by buying this product? What do they stand for? What are their values? And what does it mean about me that I choose to, buy their product, use their product, have their label on myself if I'm, purchasing clothes or something like that. And so we're continuing to see that, and I think it's driven by social norms, but it's also just driven by, we have more information now. You can go to a store and look at a label, and you can do a quick search on Twitter or Google or YouTube and find out more about that company, which we couldn't do previously. So we're asking those questions, we care about it, and I think we all realize that there are opportunities with the decisions we each make to make a difference in the world and have an impact. So this is going to continue to be a major shift that we see with brands and how brands interact with their customers and consumers, and it means reputation management is such an important focus right now, and we have to understand reputation management in a digital age, not in yesterday's view of what that meant.
So if you were to speak with leaders of organizations today, what would you tell them is really important to keep in mind about managing their reputation in a digital world?
Yeah, I think the first thing is you do have to benchmark where you are. Some organizations are in a very inactive or passive state where they might not be really engaging around their reputation, or maybe if someone says something about them, they respond. Others move into more of an active state where they're talking about themselves. But what we want to do is move into a proactive or innovative state where, we're not just talking about ourselves, but we're listening to the conversations out there and participating, even if our company or our brand isn't mentioned. So that's the first thing. Let's audit, see where we are, and see what steps we can take so that we can move forward as an organization. And I think I have to go back to this idea that there's this bottom-up approach, and we have to ask not just what story do I want to tell, but what stories are my customers telling? They're writing their own real-time autobiographies online, on Instagram and on Snapchat. What can we do to become part of that? We just worked on a cool project with Pepco, and we created a Snapchat lens for their sponsorship of Zoo Lights, so that when a customer was up at Zoo Lights participating, they could use this panda mask lens, and it moved with their face.
Neat.
It was really interactive, so that they could share that they were there and participating. And that's an example of becoming part of their story. Thousands of people used that lens, and that meant Pepco was part of thousands of people's stories that they were sharing with their friends. It's very different from interrupting those people with an ad. It's not that we don't ever want to do that,
right.
But there's a new tactic that we need to take advantage of so that we're not just telling our story, but we're becoming part of other people's stories too. I think that's the number one thing leaders need to recognize, and they need to ask, how are we doing that, and are we doing it at all? And many companies have huge opportunities if they just embrace the digital mindset of how to do that better.
I think that's a great point to end our discussion on. Thank you so much for joining us
my
today,
pleasure.
Anthony.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening and being out there and watching. Stay tuned for more from the LG Digital Studio at Georgetown School of Continuing Studies.